Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Trish, would you do us the great pleasure of telling us how we're going to reboot public education? Thank you. Do you want a mic or?
How's everybody doing this morning? All right. Oh, this is a Mac. Okay. All right. So I guess I just touched the screen. Okay. All right. Thank you. As you can tell, I'm not a Mac person. So thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. This is a couple of our staff members. Scott over here came last year and told us about this conference, and I feel very fortunate to be in front of you today, particularly since this might be, I'm not going to say it might be the last one. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about public education. Before I get going, though, how many of you have kids? All right, good. How many of you went to public school? Even better. All right, go public schools. Public schools need some help, though, so we're going to talk about that today. Before we get started, go ahead and make note of our tags for Twitter. And if you're also writing about my presentation in particular, would you mind tagging it with trish-milines-dziko as well? And then that's our URL for our website. And then I'm going to be giving you a lot of data, but not as much as that's out there. So if you want to know more about what's going on in public education and look at the data sources we've been using, you can go ahead and if you have a QR scanner on your phone, I think this will work. Could somebody try it? Just to see if it'll pick up, how far back it'll pick up. Anybody grab it? I see somebody in the last rows. Are you getting it there? No, it's too far? Yeah, I got it. Well, who said that? Oh, okay. Second row. Okay. Great. Okay. And I'm going to show it again at the end. I just want to see if you can actually grab it. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick background on where I've been. I'm a computer science major, graduated college in 1979. My first job was at Computer Sciences Corporation. My second job was at Hughes Aircraft in Tucson. Then I moved to San Francisco and I taught COBOL of all things at Computer Learning Centers. And then I worked for a company called Fortune Systems, which is now defunct, but they had the first multi-user desktop computer. It was a Unix-based machine. And then I moved here to Seattle and worked for a small company called Telecalc, which led me to Microsoft. And while I was at Microsoft, the thing I started reflecting on is that no matter where I worked in all of these places, I was usually one of a handful of people of color as a programmer, and one of maybe 3 or 4% of women. And that stayed constant while technology itself changed, and who used technology and why we use technology. All that changed over that time. But what I was seeing was that people of color and low-income people were not getting access to this tool that was becoming a necessary tool for everyone to be successful. So while I was at Microsoft, I changed my career and moved into the diversity department. And while I was there for that year and a half, I ran the high school internship program. And I met two young men, two African-American boys that went to Garfield High School in Seattle. Garfield, go Garfield. All right. And they were very, very bright boys. And they wanted to be engineers. And here I hired them for the summer, and they were doing great at Microsoft. And then they enrolled in their sophomore year and were not able to take the higher level math classes because nobody tracked them the right way when they were freshmen. And it frustrated me not only because it was tracking, because that's the same thing that happened to me almost 25 years before that. And I couldn't believe that public education was still doing that. So I felt like I had a chance to do something to change it. So I left Microsoft and started the Technology Access Foundation with my partner, with a very simple mission to bring technology to communities of color. That was it. We thought that's all we really needed to do. We knew that the public education system had some challenges, but we really had no idea how bad it was until we started looking at the data. So if you look at this data point here, what it's showing is U.S. student achievement, our brightest students. Because the argument that people always make is that we have a country where we accept everybody in public education, it's truly public. In other countries, that's not true. But if you take our students that are categorized as our brightest students, look where they stand in the world, particularly in math and science. And we need to change that. They seem to be very confident, though, in their perception of how smart they are. Right? We are ranked high in terms of kids going to college, but in our state in particular, 48% of the kids who enter our public institutions have to take remedial classes. That means we're paying for them to take high school classes all over again before they even begin to take a college-level math class in particular. That seems to be the biggest problem. Per student funding across the nation, almost every state has raised the amount of money that they pay per student, that they fund each student in. But Washington State is 42nd in the nation in per student funding. So typically, we fund our kids at about $5,000 per kid is what makes it to the school, when other states are at 10, 12, 15,000 per kid. So we're starting from behind. So I'm going to tell you a story to kind of illustrate this data here that I'm putting out in front of you. How many of you saw Waiting for Superman? Not many. Okay, so when it comes out, you have to see it. It's an amazing movie. So I sat on a panel after the showing of Waiting for Superman at the International Film Festival. And I sat with this young woman named Jasmine who is going to be a senior at Cleveland High School. Cleveland's on the south end of Seattle. And she was really upset because people were talking about how bad Cleveland is. Cleveland is on the No Child Left Behind list where it has to be reconstituted because they didn't meet annual yearly progress for like 5 years in a row. But in her view, she didn't understand that because she thought that they had an 85% high school graduation rate. This is a kid that's at the school. Let's take a look at what it is for real. Oh, what happened to my thing, my graph? It's a Mac. Oh, man. It's not there. I don't know what to do. So we'll just skip right past it. So basically, I can tell you this is why you have a printout to go along with it. Okay? Jeez. Technology. Okay. So what they really have is a 44% on-time graduation rate. And here is this kid who thought that she had she was at a school that had an 85% graduation rate. So who was telling who what? I don't get that. But the data doesn't really lie about that. So if you compare them to, say, Bellevue High School, which may or may not be fair, Bellevue High School has a 72% on-time graduation rate, which actually is still kind of low in the scheme of things. But if you compare them to Cleveland, it's like night and day. But if you take a look at, which you can't see, two schools in the same district. So what we did was we took Kent Ridge High School, which has a 23.8% free and reduced lunch rate that is low income. And then Kent Meridian High School, which has a 62.5% of their kids are low income. The high school graduation rate for the higher income kids, 83%. For the lower income kids, 67%. And so you might be thinking, well, it's lower income kids have, they have poor health, et cetera. But when you think about it, it's about the resources that the other school has. When you have a state that is funding so low, but you have a community that has enough money to make up for it, the kids that live in that community, regardless of whether they're smarter than the other kids or not, are going to do better because they have more resources. That is the tale that is being told in our state. From school to school to school, if you live in a community that has the resources, regardless of your ability, you're going to do better because your families can afford after-school tutoring. They can afford big PTA auctions where they bring a lot of money into the school. And this is one of the problems in public education. It's just not even. Okay, at least this graphic showed up. So if you look at the trajectory, we take 20,000 students and you'll see why. If you took 20,000 students and you figure 70% of them graduate on time, that's our average in our state, is 70%. At the end of the day, only 4,820 of them are actually going to get out of college. That's a pretty low number. If you look at kids of color and low-income kids, that number is even lower. So let's take our seniors this year in Washington State. We had 82,910 seniors in our state. We have a very small state. 24,873 of them will not graduate on time. So we have almost 25,000 kids that are either going to be running around trying to find a job or trying to get their GED or know that they have one more year of high school. Who goes to high school for 5 years? It doesn't make any sense. That's how many kids per year we're cranking out in our state because we are failing as a public education system to educate them. So what do you think the causes might be? You might be thinking that minority and low-income kids are incapable of learning. We know that's not true. Case in point in front of you, minority and low income. Okay? We all know people who come from those backgrounds that do just fine. There's a lot of data out there that shows when a school district or a school puts the right effort into making sure those kids have the resources and the consistency in teaching, they do just as well as the top students who have all the resources. We're underspending education dollars. Well, in this state, that's probably really true. But across the nation, that's not true. We're spending more than we ever have since 1970. Smaller class sizes will fix the problem. Yes or no? Data showing that you can have a small class but a crappy teacher in front. Doesn't matter, all right? Charter schools are the answer. Now, we don't have charter schools here. I know there's a big push to have charter schools, but they're not necessarily the answer, and sometimes they cause more problems than the public school because they are allowed to go off and do the things they want to do the way they want to do them, and often without any checks and balances. This is an urban problem. No, because really in suburban areas, the problem is masked a little because you have more kids, because of the level of resources, you have more kids who are on the higher spectrum of achievement, and it masks the kids that are on the lower spectrum. And then those kids get funneled into a place unknown, never to be seen again. And it is a fundamental problem in our suburban culture that hasn't been outed yet, and eventually it will. And you might be thinking that it doesn't impact you as an individual. I mean, certainly when I think about If you have resources, you have kids and you have your own resources, you might believe that this doesn't impact you because you know you're going to do everything you can for your kid, whether it be put them in the best public school or put them in a private school or homeschool them, whatever the case may be. You know you can handle your own kid. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty big problem for all of us. So for instance, male high school dropouts, 47 times more likely to be incarcerated. And you, oh man, not again. Okay, I'm just gonna keep on going. All right. If you look at lack of education, people who have low education attainment have high mortality rates. So that's costing us all. Financially, it's costing us our health-wise. When you think about, if you take public transportation and somebody hasn't taken care of themselves health-wise because they can't afford it, and they have some contagious disease, we're all impacted, right? We're impacted because they're on public health care. We're impacted because our rates are going to go up over time because they're not being covered. And the more high school dropouts we have, the more people who aren't covered. And then there's more. The average person who's a high school dropout, it costs us $200,000 in their working lifetime, so they're in and out of jobs, to keep them on public assistance. And you think about all those amazing minds that are unfortunately born into poverty that we are wasting because we as a public system cannot see our way to properly educate them. We're creating an impossible future for our own kids. I have 4 children myself, and my partner and I have done everything possible to stay in a public school system and make sure that our kids got the best education. But we're both educated, and we have resources. But there are a lot of kids that we know that don't have those resources. So what do we do for them? Everybody has to play a part there, because my kids and your kids are going to grow up with the kids that have nothing. So what are we leaving them? What kind of partners are we giving them to create this different world? The world that we created here, how are we going to help them create whatever world it is they're going to create? We're here at this conference talking about creating you and creating a new society. You can't do that if you don't have an education. It's just impossible. What we know that works is raising expectations. So if you tell a kid you can do this, they will do it. If you tell them you can do this, they will do it. And they'll stop right here because in your mind, you told them all they can do is this. But if you tell them you can achieve at this high level, then they will do it. And you give them the resources, they will do it.
Trish, I've got control of your presentation. This is real PowerPoint.
Okay.
So hopefully now we'll be good.
Okay, cool. Well, I don't have any more graphs now. It's okay. It's all right. Still got the love. Don't worry. Okay. So then you talk about leadership. So we need leadership in the classrooms and we need leadership in the schools. We have a school, and I'll talk a little bit about it in a minute, but the number one thing that we understood is that we had to have the best leader at the head of the school and the best leaders in the classroom. You have to be able to measure progress and then be held accountable for that progress. Now, our system can't quite find their way to do this stuff because it is a big bureaucracy. And we're asking for a lot of change in a very short amount of time. And we're asking for it in a short amount of time because we're talking about kids. We're talking about their development. And why do we let year after year after year go when we know that all you need is a bad teacher one year and it could set you back 2 grade levels? You get 2 bad teachers in a row, you may as well kiss it goodbye because they're going to pass you anyway, but you're not really going to be ready. You're not going to be ready to move to middle school. You're not going to be ready to move to high school. So we have to change that. And we are going to change that. TAF is going to change the trajectory of 20,000 kids. We're bringing hope. We're bringing a solution. We are doing exactly the thing that I wanted to do when I left Microsoft and I left the technology industry. We are being social entrepreneurs, and we are changing public education. We're changing it for 20,000 kids at a time. I have 15 minutes, okay. We're changing it for 20,000 kids. Our goal is by the year 2020, so we only have 10 years to do this, on an annual basis, we are going to be educating 20,000 kids to high school graduation, to college entrance, and subsequently to college graduation and career. It is a huge effort that a tiny organization of 17 people is not going to be able to do on our own, which is why I'm standing here today. Because we need people to talk about the work that we are doing. We need people to talk about the work of changing public education. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to do it. We have a program called Tech Start that has been running since the year 2000. And we've had nearly 1,000 kids in that program since. And what we focus on is building that confidence early on in using technology, in working in groups, in assuming leadership positions on projects, in feeling like you have control of your own learning. Our kids set their own norms for their classrooms. They decide how they're going to learn. It's an after-school program, and they're with us for 3 hours a week. We're moving this program into the school day this next year. And we're going to have a presence in elementary classrooms supporting teachers in this work, not supplanting them, supporting them in this work. We have our TAF Academy, which is an actual school. It's a 6th through 12th grade science, technology, engineering, and math school. It is a public school, not a private school. It is a public-private partnership, not a charter school. Our first school we opened in 2008 in the Federal Way School District, and we're opening our second school in 2011 in a district to be named. It's a surprise until the end of September. We're excited about the Academy because what it allows us to do is to take this idea of a full school that is surrounded by community organizations, by industry, that has provided the resources necessary to help kids succeed. A place where high expectations, a place where kids are working in a project-based learning environment, authentic projects, everything that life is about, this school is about. It is a college-ready school. Every single kid that graduates from TAF Academy will go to college. That is the name of the game. They will go to college. It's not an option. It is what it is. And then we're also going to take the work of the Academy and Tech Start and launch a program called Teach 21, where we take the core of this work, the important leadership development, the important pedagogy, the student support that is really the core of TAF Academy and Tech Start, and all of those teachers out there and all of those schools that are willing to change their practice, that are willing to go through the adaptive change, we're going to work with them to make sure that they are effective, to make sure that they are efficient in what they do, and that they bring the best to their students. And that's how we're going to reach our 20,000 number. But we can't reach it until we have a place for all of our staff to grow. So we're in the middle of a capital campaign to build a community learning center where the community can come together and learn. So much like Gnomedex is for anybody in any field who's interested in social networking and social entrepreneurship, our space is for any type of education, not just technology education. 75% of this space is open to the community. It will be located in White Center. It's a place where the community can share what they know with each other and continue the trend of lifelong learning. There are some things that you can do. There are some things that you can do, and you have to do them because kids can't vote. If kids could vote, we would have a better public education system. If they had a voice, the voice they have is your voice, not the voice of that phone that's going off right now. The voice they have is your voice, to stand up for them. And I'm asking you to help us stand up for all of our kids in the way that you can. You can learn more. You can scan that thing again and get more to the data in A Right Denied. You can go to our website. You can go to our Media Lab, which Scott has so wonderfully put together for us. You can also follow us. See, we're hip, we're cool. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn. And we're constantly posting. And I have this sore thumb right now from going like this all the time. You can get involved. You can volunteer in the classroom. We have wonderful opportunities to bring professionals into our classrooms. Talk about what you know. Sit there and hang out with the kids. Show them that you care. Get them interested in a profession that they never even heard of. You can come and visit our academy. And then after you're totally blown away, you can get on your phones and your laptops and you can tweet away and talk about the work that we do. If you are in a position in your company to offer a high school internship for our students, we have incredibly bright students who can write code. They can do a lot of things. They're also well prepared for the work environment. You can write to your legislators. As we come up on this next session, there's going to be a lot around teacher effectiveness. We need people out there talking to our legislators to get them some backbone. They have absolutely no backbone. We have a system here where we have a superintendent of public instruction that has absolutely no power to do. He doesn't have any power to do anything. So if I own a school district and I want to do what I want to do, I can do what I want to do. There is nobody above me that says I can do otherwise. All right? Our governor needs to be pinged as well, because I want her to lean on the legislators and set the tone, be the leader and set the tone. And then talk to your network about what you heard today. Send me some email. I'm happy to send you more information. But go out and talk to people about what you heard today, good or bad. I just want you talking about it. And then the final piece is you can make a difference. You can make a difference right now. For all of you who had that phone, if you go ahead and take a picture of that, it'll take you to an online donation site. Totally up to you. Totally up to you. But really what I want is for you to be educated about what we do, be educated about the importance of public education, and act in the way that you see fit. Thank you very much. Question?
I actually work in education technology and now high school graduation rates peaked around 1970 in the US and they've been steadily declining ever since.
Yes.
You mentioned Cleveland. Detroit is like the pit of the universe when
Yes.
it comes to graduation rates. Technology has been talked about as a fix for this for a very long time. Randy Dorn, who you mentioned a minute ago, even said at a conference last fall he wants to try to give $500 set aside to each student for technology in the classroom, but that hasn't gone through. How can technology basically reverse a decline that is about 40 years in the making? I mean, how long of a haul do we have here?
In terms of having technology be an
In
impact?
terms of being able to reverse the trend, how long are we talking?
Well, you know, one wise person once told me that in education, a lot of times brick walls are made of flesh. And that's the problem right now. The problem is you have a lot of people who are wedded to the way they already do things, and they don't want to change. It's about adaptive behavior, not technical change. And I don't mean technical like in technology, but I mean systems change. You can change the system, you can set up anything you want, but until you get the people to actually move, you're not going to see the trend reverse. You need to have every single person in that classroom, in that school, focus on kids and not on themselves. You need the system to be brave enough to say, if you have teachers who really shouldn't be teachers, maybe they're content experts, but if you can't communicate what you know to the kids, then you can't be in front of the classroom. But we let that keep going on. And until you see that change, I don't see the trend reversing as a whole. Now, our goal as a foundation is to make sure that trend reverses for the kids that we touch and for the schools that we touch. But again, you know, I encourage anybody who has an idea, who wants to go out there and do what we're doing, to do it. Because the reality is we're only going to hit with so many kids. Yes.
Speaking of so many kids, is there other organizations in other states that are doing this? Obviously, you can't be everywhere at all times. Do you have that, or have you got some sort of boilerplate that you can produce to get a head start in another country, another state?
Another state? Well, most states have charters, so it's much easier to do something like this. For us, it's a challenge in this state because we have to have a relationship with the district, and the district has to allow us to come in and be an equal partner with them. So we're the only ones in the state doing this kind of work. When we built this school model, we did look across the nation and spoke with a lot of education experts and brought those great ideas in. But we would be willing to share with other people who want to maybe do we're a STEM school, we're going to open 5 in the state. Somebody may want to do a communication school or an art school. We'd be happy to share that model of partnership with anybody who wants to do it. Yeah. Yes.
So as a former high school teacher who quit mainly because of my frustration with the lack of support from parents, I think that I didn't hear a lot about what you guys view as the role of parents in supporting this, because I think no matter how awesome the teacher is, those kids spend the majority of time learning their messages about education and the importance of moving forward from their parents.
I totally agree with you that our initial ideas come from our parents, but at the end of the day, when you have kids in front of you who may not have parents, who may be in a foster system, or who may have parents who don't or can't care, the job of the teacher for those 6 hours in that day is to make sure you give everything to those kids. That's not to say that you have to totally educate that kid yourself and that they have to be, hit this bar like this, right? What we're looking at is from year to year to year, do we see kids progressing in your classroom? So, for example, if you had two fourth grade teachers, and consistently the 5th grade teachers receiving those kids the next year got underprepared kids from one teacher and then got well-prepared kids for another, why are we keeping the teacher who underprepares the kids when they're the same kind of kids? You see what I'm saying? So we're looking at what can be controlled by the system within its own grasp. The system can't control what happens in the home, and they never will. And I always also go back to, and this was a different day and time, but in the 60s when I was going to school, my mom didn't even get out of elementary school because she had to work. And she didn't know anything I was doing, but we had enough community that we all supported each other, and I was able to get through school. So community plays a huge role as well. So I don't want you to think that I'm just saying the teachers are the cause, but what we can control in the education system are the employees of the education system. Yes.
Tricia, thank you, number one, very much for your passion. I, as a Washingtonian, watched the election procedures on Tuesday and watched district after district lose their funding because the voters voted it down, sometimes by 6 and 7. And I know you're speaking today on Washington, but it's a nationwide issue, and Department of Education put out some stats that just blew me away, and that was if you took the honor students of China graduating from secondary schools, they dwarf the number of high school graduates in the United States.
Yes.
talk about economic competitiveness long-term. If we don't educate our youth, then we are auguring ourselves into the ground. So thank you for your passion, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Tricia. Richard Wood here. I just wanted to give you a testament from one of our mutual friends in the tech community who hired one of your interns, a 16-year-old young man who was writing JavaScript for them. And this person who oversees this student told me that this intern outperforms some of her employees who are making 5 times as much money.
I love it.
So
Thank
I
you.
just want to give
Thank
that
you.
testament for you and your organization.
Thank you.
Hi, Trish. I just want to say that I've participated in the TAF program as a volunteer, and it's really cool to get in there and work with these kids, and as much help as you can give them or the community can give them and support for her programs. It makes a huge difference with these kids, and you know, they're young kids, like, I don't know, 4th grade, I guess.
We go down to kindergarten.
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with little kids that
Yeah.
were hard to focus and keep from the computer. But in the end, they produced websites and they did animations on the computer, and it was really, really rewarding for myself as much as it was for them, I think. So the program has been awesome, and my company supports it. We support it, and we send folks every round to go and volunteer. So I'm just waiting to do it again.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. On behalf of our kids. Yes.
Hi. Your initial graph there showing the performance of I guess, higher end U.S. students compared to other countries. Are those other Am I still there? Yes.
Yeah.
Are those other countries doing what you're talking about doing here, or are they doing something different? What is it? What can you gain from what these other countries have been doing that are performing better?
Well, I think if you look at how they treat education, they go deep instead of wide, all right? So we try to cover everything under the sun without having kids master anything, and then we move them on to the next thing. In other countries, they have mastery before they move on. And they also have a level of, in some countries, like the Scandinavian countries, tend to have more on the line of creativity as well added in there. I would say the Asian countries, not so much on the creativity side, but they're starting to add those things in. So every country is a little bit different, but I would say the other thing is the level of which they hold teachers. It is an honor to be a teacher in those other countries. It is not an honor, unfortunately, in the United States to be a teacher. We don't pay them well. We don't support them well, and consequently what we have now is that people who go into the teaching majors are at the bottom quarter of their peers in SAT scores. So this is who we have teaching. Not to knock those people, but they could probably do something else better. Any other
Hi, I'm Dan.
Where'd you go?
I'm over here. Hi, how's it going? I'm Dan.
Okay, sorry.
Hey, listen, I've got a. We talk about education, but have you ever thought about actually working with the colleges? I'm sorry, Chris is over there like going, stand up now. Scary. That was scary. Have you ever thought about working with the colleges themselves directly, like City University of Seattle or University of Washington, that actually generate these teachers that are going in who are at the bottom 25th percentile of the SAT scores, to see if we can try to get more influence or more joy out of what they're doing?
There are
them
other
pumped
people
up.
doing that work. That's a great idea. We don't have that level of expertise yet. We will gain it over time. We are doing some work with the Martinez Foundation that was started by Edgar and Holly Martinez, where they're giving scholarships to people of color who want to be teachers. And we're working with them on setting up a criteria for how they work with these students and the kind of skills that they want these students to have when they graduate. So that's about as high as we can go in terms of the level of expertise we have. But give us, 5 or 6 years, I think we'll have enough that we can start working with these colleges and talking about, what they can do. UW Bothell is going to start doing some work with us to observe our classrooms and have some of their people come student teach. It's just, a wheel that just has to turn a little faster. Yes.
Hi, Trace. I'm curious about the standardized tests. It seems to me that most of the tests that we're using in this country measure your lack of melanin more than they measure anything else. It seems like they're terribly biased and don't really measure much of anything other than your ability to take a test.
Yeah, they're biased in a lot of ways. They're biased in region, they're biased in race, they're biased in gender. I mean, the standardized tests have never been perfect, but they are what we have. So one of the things we do in our school is we actually teach our kids what to look for, not teach them how to take the test. But you know, the way we teach is in a project-based learning environment, and then we show them what the test questions look like. It's like, well, you know, you did this before, it just looked like this, right? And so they're asking you in this particular way. And I think in some way, it prepares our kids to be multilingual in a different way. Like, I have to be multilingual when I'm hanging out with my black friends versus when I'm hanging out in corporate America, right? I have to have a different way that I communicate. And so I'm multilingual in a lot of different ways, and we need to teach our kids to be that way academically.
Trish, I applaud what you're doing, but I've a question about what you see as sort of the success target of a college degree. And that we look and somehow Steve Jobs and Bill Gates did okay without graduation. Isn't it possible for people to sort of opt out and start performing without a credential?
It's possible if you are white and you are male. If you are, one of the things that I said I wouldn't do, because I get this question a lot, and we do focus mostly on low-income kids and kids of color, one of the things I said I would not do was to compromise the college idea. Because if I try to do what Steve and Bill and every other person who did a startup and all that, if I tried to do that as an African American, I wouldn't get very far, because people see me totally different. So I need every kind of tool, every kind of degree I can possibly have to make sure I'm successful. And obviously I need to know some stuff too. But just to have those credentials really makes a difference if you are from a certain population.
A lot of great questions, and I apologize. We've got time for 2 more questions, and I think we're slated here, so thanks for the questions. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Trish. My name is Lamar. I'm a former elementary school teacher, and I am a tech consultant for schools. So what I'm wondering is if you think that the way schools are structured now, should they be more structured like corporations or businesses where if a teacher sucks, they can be removed? Because it seems like the tenure system that we have, and I've worked with these teachers, they've been in there 20, 30 years, and they know they can't get fired, so they do whatever they want. They don't integrate technology, and it's frustrating for me with my business to try to teach them, and they don't want to be taught. So would that corporate structure be more beneficial? Like in Chicago, they have a change where the mayor is kind of the head, and they have a CEO. Do you think that'll be beneficial?
I think some form of evaluation other than the binary system we have now, which I don't know how many of you know, but you get graded as satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And then within 2 years, you can have tenure. So with a grading system like that, it's almost impossible to get rid of people who don't belong in the classroom. So I think a multi-tiered system where I'm evaluated for how much I participate in professional development, how much growth I show in my kids month to month and year to year, those kind of things should be added in there. And then it looks a lot more like a fair, I wouldn't say corporate because it's kind of apples and oranges, but then it looks more fair, where you're actually looking at criteria. You look at all the criteria we use to rate a kid, and then you look at what we do to rate adults in public education, it's like night and day. Okay, so you have 40-something standards versus satisfactory and unsatisfactory. That's what we're looking at.
Hi, I think what you're
Hi.
doing is great, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering about the college thing. I think you're right that kids need to have that, to get anywhere as a baseline. But I'm thinking about some of the community colleges and vocational programs, and places like Germany, they they see that some kids aren't meant for the four-year type experience, and so they encourage, that they get skills still, but in a different level. Are you allowing that with the kids, or is that something, how do you frame that up for them?
Well, we're preparing our kids in the academy for four-year schools. We're certainly not dismissing community college. In fact, in our earlier programs, we had kids that did community college first to get their core courses out the way, save money, and then went on to a four-year school. I think there's value all the way around. What I worry about is the tracking possibility, because if you look back in the 70s and 80s, what we did for low-income kids and kids of colors, we put them on the vocational track, regardless of whether they had the ability to go over to the college prep track. And so I worry about those things, and so I always err on the side of get to the highest you can go. But some form of post-secondary education is absolutely necessary, whether it's community college, four-year school, trade school, something. You can't come out with a high school diploma and expect that you're going to get any kind of career. You might get a job, but you're not going to get a career. Yeah. Thank you all very, very much.